City Council regular meeting, October 12th, 2021, City Council Chamber, 6 p.m., 938 Fresno Street. This meeting will be held in accordance with California Government Code Section 59453, Subdivision E of the Ralph M. Brown Act, California Government Code Section 54950, and the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. Given the state of emergency regarding the threat of COVID-19, this meeting will not be held and physically open to the public. All members of the public may participate and comment via video conferencing at https://zoom.us/j/98220239475 with the passcode of 661622, and via teleconference by calling 669-900-6833 with a meeting ID of 98220239475 and a passcode of 661622. Can we all go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for invocation? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll go ahead and do the invocation because I don't see McDonald on. Lord, please give us guidance as we work through this meeting to make the best make the best decisions for the city. May you continue to bless our country, our service members, and our police and fire or first responders as we struggle through the given circumstances in our country. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Roll call.
Councilmember Ball,
Present.
Councilmember McDonald, Councilmember Pimentel,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Candia, and Mayor Graham.
Here.
Mayor, just both McDonald, he called today, and then Candia is on an extended trip.
Okay, so 3 of us, that's enough, correct?
Yes, it'll be 3 tonight.
All right. Any declarations of conflicts of interest tonight?
No.
Not seeing it. Then we'll move on. Item number 6, Ceremonial Matters, presentation of community-wide incentives to support economic development and housing strategies in Stanislaus County.
Am I good to go, Michael?
You're good.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, everybody, I'm going to introduce, this is Jody Hayes, County CEO, and he's going to kind of introduce his team, and they're going to be 2 separate presentations they want to perform for us.
Outstanding.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you all for having us. We appreciate the opportunity. And of course, at some point, we'd love to be in person with you, but there's also a nice convenience factor with being able to gather because we've got team members from all over the place that support this effort. So thank you very much for having us on your agenda this evening. It's my privilege to introduce these 2 initiatives to you, but I want to recognize there's a large team of individuals and various organizations that are supporting both of the initiatives that we're going to present to you tonight. One that we refer to as Stanislaus 2030, which is around economic development and job creation, and another that we refer to as Housing Stanislaus, around our future of housing in Stanislaus County and what we will look like going forward in the future and how we can work together there. So I just want to touch base real quick on both of those items that I have been in the role as Chief Executive Officer for Stanislaus County now for about 4 years. Been with the county much longer than that, but as CEO for 4 years. And from the very beginning in working with our Board of Supervisors, even though we've kind of transitioned over time, it's been very clear and consistent that the 2 main areas where we think we can make a difference long-term strategically are in quality job creation as well as housing. And those 2 things work very much hand in hand and really present the basic balance of any community. a place where individuals have job opportunities, not just one or two, but many, and that those opportunities make it so that it's affordable to live within the community, so that all members of our community can live in safe neighborhoods and a place to call home. So that's fundamentally what drives us on both of these initiatives. I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the work that we've been doing on COVID is pretty obvious. And I think all the impacts are well known. I would share with you that both of these initiatives would have come to you probably over a year ago had we not been diverted to address issues related to COVID emergency response. So we're about a year behind schedule on these things, but we've got a lot of energy for them. We tried to take that time to better prepare ourselves. And I would like to think that we have a better product starting today than where we would have been a year ago. But I do want to recognize there is a sense of urgency for those of us working on these matters, because this work is just long overdue in our community. Michael, I forgot to ask you, will you guys be showing the PowerPoint on the screen, or do I need to do something on my end, or how does that work?
Yeah, I believe they have it set up where Nubia will allow you to share your screen.
Share my screen?
Yes, I set it up so that any participant can share their screen. But if it's easier, I can always share mine. And if you send it to me, I can always run through it myself.
No, I'll go ahead and share my screen. And as long as, will somebody else be able to speak while I'm sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then I'll go ahead and do that. The first effort I want to introduce is an effort we call Stanislaus 2030. And I'll go ahead and just kick this off, and then I'll pull up the presentation itself. And then Marianne, you can go from there if that's okay. But on Stanislaus 2030, the reason that we've named this is very intentional. What we're attempting to do here is to pull together stakeholders from throughout the community that are not just government-led. It's actually quite the contrary. We really want this to embrace the energy from the private sector that's already actively involved in this. So private sector leadership, civic leadership, along with government, coming together to envision what does our economy look like in the year 2030, and what investments and strategies do we need to make today to deliver that future economy a decade from now. Now, I already mentioned that we're about a year behind. We would have started in 2020, but it really is about saying a decade from now, how can we intentionally envision our future economy? And then what steps need to take place for us to be there someday? So when you really dig into this big question, you find that it needs to be a data-driven process. So we need to have a lot of information about what could make us competitive as a community in a future space, not just today, but going forward in the future. So I want to introduce our key business partner in this effort for Stanislaus 2030. Marianne Cannon's the President and Chief Executive Officer for the Stanislaus Community Foundation. They've been a tremendous partner of ours. They've been doing work in this space for the last several years, studying our local economy and producing some reports that have been very valuable to us as an organization about where we could spend and make investments in the local community that will make not just an immediate impact, but a lasting impact. So Marianne's going to describe the initiative going forward. And why don't you go ahead and get started while I pull us up on the screen.
Great. And Jody, if you'd like, I can share my screen too, if that's easier for you.
Go for it. Why don't you do that? You could flip your own slides.
Perfect. I have it teed up right here. Let me know. Can everyone see that?
Yes, it's up.
Awesome. Well, it's really good to be with all of you today. So as Jody mentioned, the Community Foundation is a partner to the county, but really we have many other partners as well, including the business community that really sees the window of opportunity that's opened up for communities like ours with both state and federal funding that's really earmarked towards communities that are very intentional about their economy and where it's headed. So as Jody mentioned, this is the vision and mission of the Stanislaus 2030 initiative. It's really a collaboration among multiple stakeholders, including elected officials like you, to really begin to plan for an economy that's a decade away, but that needs to be developed right now in terms of opportunity industries, workforce development, upskilling programs, all of that, and getting really intentional. At the end of the day, I want you to remember two things. Stanislaus 2030 wants to do two things. One, it wants to build more industry, right? Create more quality jobs. And also we want to pull more struggling families into self-sufficiency. And when we say self-sufficiency, that means that they're able to access the next rung in the economic ladder, that they have mobility and agency. That means that if they want to start a business, they're able to do so. If they want to buy a home, they're able to do so. If they want to upskill and get, upskill their jobs and their certifications or what have you, they're able to do so. That's at the end of the day, the twofold mission: increase more industry and produce more upskilling and opportunities for families so they move from struggling to self-sufficiency. But why do this, right? So at the end of the day, we start with the why, and that really is to make our county more competitive. The communities that capture more state and federal funding and apply it to workforce development strategies or economic development strategies have those strategies in place. They have the consensus of education leaders, government leaders, the private sector. So getting really clear on what it's going to take, using data as a beginning point. I'll explain how we're going to do that. And also developing a more competitive economic development agenda is really at the end of the day what this is about. So we wanted to sort of list out the whys and really take a consensus building, holistic approach to our economy. Oftentimes, as you may know, things happen in a fragmented fashion. Cities are focused on their work. The county's focused on theirs. State or MJC is focused on their plans. But bringing those things all together, and especially having the business community be a leader at the table, we think is critical to really changing up what happens in the future. So I wanted to share this with you, and this is about also broadening our definition of economic success so that we're not just looking at job counts, but we're looking at the types of jobs we're increasing in our community. So job quality, not just job quantity, but also broadening our data set and what we all know, developing a shared language as leaders and residents about what constitutes a healthy economy. And so we've hired Brookings, which is an institution out of Washington, D.C. They're sort of a think and do tank. And they're helping us with a really extensive data dive that you're going to see in January, a full report on these data points. But they think economic success, based on what they've seen around the country, is really focused not on just on job growth, but quality job growth, poverty rates declining, obviously, productivity, gross metropolitan product, standard of living, average annual wage. So all of these things are critical and again, can be looked at holistically to help us think about, again, those two objectives. How do we bring more opportunities that pay better wage jobs? And how do we give access to people to get into those jobs through upskilling and workforce training and education? And again, so those two things, and how do we increase entrepreneurial activity for those families or individuals that also, have that business-minded sense? So this is really reframing our idea of economic success. I will tell you something I've already learned during this engagement with Brookings and in developing this initiative for all of you to consider is this idea of traded sector jobs, that every job in a traded sector, which is a sector that produces a value commodity outside of Stanislaus County, our primary traded sectors, you can imagine, is ag and food manufacturing. For every one of those jobs, it produces 7 other locally serving jobs: education, government jobs, healthcare jobs, the manicurist, the esthetician, the community foundation CEO. So we need more traded sector jobs, and in getting clear on what those traded sectors might be that are either adjacent to or can be built on top of ag is really critical. And what's really cool about this initiative is you do have the elected officials. That's what we're here to present to you so that you understand this and get behind it. So ultimately it'll come back to you as a report first, and then a full agenda to consider aligning with when it comes to seeking federal and state funding. So these are the outcomes. I should mention, Jody, I think already mentioned this, it's a 10-month process. We are not going to have this be a long, drawn out 3-year process. A window of opportunity has opened up, you guys, with federal and state funding, and we want to capitalize on that. So this process will wrap up in July of next year with an investment agenda that, again, is rooted in data and market forces, because what we found out during COVID is our economy is interdependent on the rest of the world, and all communities found that out. We want to understand what the demographic shifts are, and we really want to engage the community and have them tell us how they participate in our economy and what their aspirations and goals are for their families and themselves. So at the end of the day, this investment agenda will be developed It will have business plans, again, in economic development, business development that move our economy forward. Those business plans will have metrics, owners, and they'll have funding requests tied to them. We don't expect people to find funding right away, but we're going to start working with those priority business plans to crosswalk the federal and state funding for those partners that are owning those work plans. So this is our process. Right now, we're in the organize and educate phase. We're presenting to all the city councils. We're beginning a significant resident engagement campaign. I'll show you the design of that in a moment. We've secured the consultants that are helping us with the data and the project management and the marketing and the polling and all of that. We're going to move into that data report that Brookings is going to develop. We're going to have that be very transparent and open. And then we're really going to move into this place of, okay, based on this data and what the strategies are, what are the business plans we want to develop in our investment agenda? It doesn't mean we stop everything else, but what are the most transformational things that either are already happening and need to be scaled, or new things that we need to focus on, especially when it comes to attracting a specific type of industry into our community. And ultimately, by July, we will bring back a large-scale investment agenda with those business plans that are sort of in the portfolio. This is the infrastructure. We have, I'll start with the executive committee. Again, this is really important. We co-funded this with the county. So the county has applied some funding to this. It was very important to the Community Foundations Board and to our private business leaders that they were at the table with funding too. So this is co-led right now by the county and the Community Foundation. So those are 30 key leaders that are going to start coming together and really at the helm of this work. But there's a larger leadership council that's going to meet next year early on, right after the report is published, to help us make sense of it, finalize the strategies, and really then sit on the working groups, the smaller working groups that develop those strategies out into work plans. The backbone team, as I mentioned, is the Community Foundation and the Chief Executive Office for the county, Jody's team. And then we've hired a really solid group of consultants that have done very similar work to this in Fresno, Kern, the Inland Empire, and other parts of the country. And then we absolutely are going to be seeking input from residents. And at the same time, this is where we're going to ask you to really consider serving on the elected officials roundtable, and that'll kick off in earnest early next year. And the reason we have the elected officials roundtable is really to keep our state, federal, county, and city district elected officials really briefed and providing feedback along the way, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to own pieces of this in terms of securing funding or building political will. I mentioned that resident engagement is very important to us. So these are the phases we're going to develop, and we have already identified sort of key constituent groups like Latino-led business, industry leaders in ag and food manufacturing, people seeking jobs that are recent college graduates, people that have been displaced from their jobs. So we really want to understand the experience of people participating in our economy based on their different viewpoints or vantage points in the community. And we also will have industry roundtables to have a group of folks that are in an industry kind of unpack some learnings based on the data that Brookings finds. And again, in the new year, we're going to move into then basically developing work plans, as I mentioned, based on the data and the community engagement. So here's where we're headed. What we want you to consider, for now is please join us on the elected officials roundtable. We would love to see you there, and you'll be hearing more about that. And certainly would love to engage the community in Newman in ways that you see fit. So you're welcome to let us know about that. I know Jody will talk a little bit about elected officials roundtable. And then here are our funding partners to date. And I actually have 2 more logos to add to this, because Wells Fargo and Kaiser Permanente are both funding this work too. We just haven't gotten their logos yet. Here's our contact information. There will be a website up in the next week, and we'll have a Facebook presence, and I'm happy to answer questions. I'll turn it over to Jody to fill out anything I may have missed.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Just a real quick note to reinforce how each of you can engage in this process. First of all, we would love for you to support your staff in supporting us. So we're going to have a lot of intersect with some of your city team there, and Michael's always been a great partner to work with as the city manager. So we just need you to support there. We also know that you have connection in your community. So the effect to the extent that once we get rolling here and have a community face here, if you could support this and making sure others are aware of the work that's being done. But if you do want to be directly involved, we want to make sure that opportunity is available for you through this elected officials roundtable. It's a very interesting concept because usually we have to limit how many elected officials can come together because we create all these Brown Act issues and everything. We're actually going to run this as a Brown Act meeting. We're going to invite elected officials from all different parts of the community to come together. And so if several of you want to sit on this, you can. We'll be working with the city attorney's group to make sure that we have all the appropriate notices sent and so forth. You'll be getting more information about this in the near future, but we most likely won't convene that group until next year, actually. So we're still just getting ourselves started, and we wanted to give you a preview of the work that's to come. So I'm going to stop there and see if we have any questions on this before we start talking about housing.
Any questions from the council? Not seeing any. Great presentation, though.
Thank you very much. So we're going to roll right into a discussion on housing and try to keep ourselves moving along here. And I want to introduce Evan Schmidt. Evan is Chief Executive Officer for Valley Vision, and Valley Vision is an organization that we became familiar with several years ago as we were seeking a partner, someone to partner with us to help facilitate a conversation on housing across the entire community, and recognizing that that's a really difficult and big topic to take on. And what we recognize is that Valley Vision has great experience doing very similar efforts in other communities, particularly around the Sacramento region. So we checked out their work, and we recognize that they would be a great partner to come alongside us and work with all of our cities and other stakeholders, private organizations as well, to talk about where are we at today with housing across our community? What can we do for the future, and what are the strategies that it's going to take to get there? I do want to just kind of give you the spoiler alert to this presentation. Housing Stanislaus is absolutely not about the county trying to tell cities or encourage cities where they should grow or how to grow or how much they want to grow. We recognize that what works in Newman is not going to be what works in Riverbank or Houston or Turlock. And so that's all baked into this process. And I just want you all to know that up front. So Evan, if you could go to that first slide of the housing continuum. I'm just going to cover this briefly. This is a kind of an oversimplification of what the housing continuum is. You start all the way at the lowest rung of the ladder, which are emergency shelters. Some of you may be familiar with, where we have people that are in shelter for either 1 day to 6 months. And then you go up to transitional housing that might go up to 24 months. And then what we call permanent supportive housing, which are folks that they may be in an environment where they're going to stay in that housing situation for a long period of time, but they really can't be there on their own. They need support in that housing. And so that's another rung on the ladder that's important to us. Then we have workforce and affordable housing projects. In the past, a lot of people have just talked about affordable housing projects. But the truth is that we have a lot of people in our community that are working full time that still cannot afford to live in the community or really struggle to live in the community. And so there's this whole new area of just workforce housing, trying to house and provide safe housing to working lower to moderate income families. And then obviously the rental, I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, are we good? Okay. Then the rental housing market and the home ownership market everybody generally understands that. So that's a real oversimplification of the housing continuum. But the reason I wanted to show you this is because we've been focused on this for many years now, but we recognize you can't address all these issues in one conversation. We really had to kind of bifurcate the conversation. So we created the Stanislaus Homeless Alliance a couple of years ago, and it's been operating now for well over 2 years. And that is really intended to address the lower half of the housing continuum. So those conversations are focused, just like the name suggests, on issues predominantly dealing with homelessness in our community and trying to develop one common vision and strategy around homelessness. That's not what this conversation is about tonight. So if you're particularly interested in what's happening with the Homeless Alliance, I'd be happy to come back another time, or you could always reach out to me directly and we could talk for hours about our work there. The truth is that most of our efforts have been on the lower half of this housing continuum over the last several years. This effort that we're talking about tonight with Housing Stanislaus is on the upper half of this housing continuum. It really is intended to be focused on workforce and affordable housing, as well as rental housing, home ownership. That's the focus that we're at now. And we're still very much dedicated to spending time and energy on the lower half of this housing continuum, but we recognize we really need to be focused on the upper half. And that's where you don't see a lot of attention, at least strategically across the community in the past. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Evan to go from there. And then I'm going to stick around for questions as well.
All right, thanks, Jody, and good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good, great. All right. Whoops, sorry about that. Okay, so thank you for that. I'm going to give just a brief presentation tonight to talk a little bit more about what Jody has just introduced, and that's we're going to start with kind of why we need to go into this right now and what the imperative for this project is. We're going to talk about the goals and the desired outcomes that we're aiming towards, the roles that we'll have, the game plan or our work plan, and then leave time for questions. And so starting with why are we doing this? And I don't think, I think we're all really, through our experience in our communities, we're all really aware of the challenges that we have around housing, both within Stanislaus County and in the state of California. So I just want to take a minute to talk about the three legs of the stool of the housing crisis that we're experiencing across many communities. So first of all, there's an increased demand for housing. So I think in Stanislaus County, we know that there's people moving into the county and that there's not enough housing to speak to the demand that is out there because of this population growth. So we know that by 2031, we're going to see an increase of about 50,000 people into the county. And we know that there's not enough housing to deal with that issue. And so that gets to the next leg of the stool, which is the inadequate supply. So even right now, in a healthy housing market has about a 5% vacancy rate. What we're seeing in Stanislaus County right now is about a 1.6 vacancy rate of housing. So a real indicator there that we're already at a moment where there's not enough housing to meet the needs of the community. And then when you put these two things together, what you really get is rising costs, and there's already an affordability issue. The median home sale cost in Stanislaus County right now is about $425,000. And when you look at that number, it's clear, at least it's clear to me certainly that that is not something that is affordable for many families and for many people across the county. And so I think one thing when we think about this countywide initiative, we know that each city is going to be experiencing the challenges around housing differently. But at the same time, this issue is eroding quality of life across the county for everybody. And so it's really important that there is a collective approach and a common vision behind this across the cities. So to go into a little bit of the details about what this project is and what it isn't, and Jody already set this up for me, but I'm going to start with what it isn't. This project is not about taking away control from from cities or telling cities what or how to develop. And that's a really important point because there's really a recognition that there's going to be different local preferences and ways of dealing with housing issues across each city. And what we want to do is set this countywide shared vision and policy framework to set the stage for more housing, more affordable and market rate housing that meets the needs of communities across Stanislaus County. So this is really about vision setting together. And I'm going to go into talking about how we're going to really engage with cities and individuals across the county, but really seeing this vision that's developed collectively with a lot of input and really solid data backing it to provide this framework that accounts for the city's differences, but also moves everybody in the county towards a better position around the housing challenges that we face. So to get into what we're really aiming for in this project, there's three main things that I want to highlight. The first one is developing this or establishing the shared understanding of the needs, challenges, and opportunities. And for us, this really translates to taking a data-driven approach. And for my agency, Valley Vision, when we're doing these large scale multi-stakeholder processes, we always want to start with data, always want to really not only understand the situation, but then translate that to a way that's understandable to everybody. And so when we're talking about starting with data, we want to be thinking about the housing market, the economic markets, balancing different land use priorities, the demographics across the different cities, the barriers to entry for the housing market, and the opportunities that need to be seized by both cities and county. So really starting with the data. And the second piece is developing a unified and actionable countywide vision and strategy framework. And when we think about this, this is really engaging with people and stakeholders across the county. So this is the process where we really get a good understanding of where people's choke points, where are the opportunities from people on the ground, and want to make sure that this includes priorities, policies, investments, a really cohesive way of thinking about how do we need to take some action around housing in order to accelerate affordable and market rate housing. And then finally, number 3, we want to prioritize specific projects and programs for housing development. So we want this to be specific and actionable so that we're really highlighting and looking at what are the specific needs and projects that we need to see in the county. So to talk a little bit about the engaged process, first I want to talk about the structure of how we're thinking about moving this project forward. And I'm sure this looks very familiar with what Marianne just presented, because in both instances, we're really envisioning this very collaborative and engaged structure. So for the housing part of this, first of all, we're going to be engaging with and working closely with housing stakeholders. And this is a pretty broad-based group. We're really thinking about residents, neighborhood associations, advocates, employers, builders, funders, and more. So really drawing from and engaging with those that are experiencing this issue. Next, we have our executive team. We want to make sure there's a solid backing of leadership. So that includes Jody's team, the county chief executive officer, as well as city managers from across the county. So there's really a seat at the table for every city to be very collaborative and involved in this process. Next, we have our technical team. Excuse me, our technical team. It's really important that that we have the right information and the right technicians on this. And so that's thinking about the planning staff, building and public works staff, and other housing experts. And then finally, the backbone team and consultants, and that consists of Valley Vision and some housing consultants, as well as the county staff. So I want to dive in just a little bit deeper into what stakeholder engagement looks like, because that is such a critically important piece of what this project is. It's really about starting with data and starting with engagement with community members to understand and get our arms around what these issues are. So we want to have a methodology that is both deep and broad, and so that's what this is. So we want to start with key informant interviews. This is really capturing in-depth, candid input from our core stakeholders. So this is certainly you all, as well as housing advocates and other people that are really close to this issue. Next, we have focus groups. So we want to be able to kind of set the table for conversations among groups that have similar interests, like groups of planners, builders, renters, homeowners, to understand the issues from all of these different angles and really engage a really robust conversation around that. And then finally, in order to get really broad information, we're planning a community survey. So we want to capture insights from the community at large. And these are the users of housing in the county. So it's really important to understand what are their experiences and what are some of, in their day-to-day lives, what are the issues that are coming up for them when it comes to housing. So to spell out what the game plan is here. So starting here and even before now, we're in the coalition building in the research phase. So coalition building is really, in part, what these presentations are. We visited all the cities, and we're really trying to socialize this issue and build champions around the county to participate with us and work through this with us. And at the same time, we're doing the baseline research. So as I've mentioned, we want to be very data driven, and so we're gathering all of that baseline information. Coming up later in the fall, we're really going to get deeper into this building the shared vision. So that's the engagement processes that I've just outlined for you. And that's in early 2022, that's going to culminate in this event, this housing summit And this is like a town hall meeting in Stanislaus County to really present what we've heard from the community and from the stakeholders, share the data that we've brought together, and then get additional input and really set the stage to be able to develop the plan. And that's what, as we get a little further in 2022 into spring and summer, it's really going to be all about putting it all together to develop that affordable housing plan. And then throughout the project, it's really important that we're integrating into the housing element planning. So that's happening in the county and it's happening in some of the cities. So we want to make sure that we're very aligned with existing efforts that are going on and with some of the other needs around housing planning. So it's really important for us to continue to engage with you, and we will certainly be reaching out. Coming soon, we have the Stanislaus County, or the Housing Stanislaus website. That'll be a clearinghouse of all the information. The contact information you're seeing here is Alan Lang. He's the managing director of Valley Vision and also managing this project. And we really look forward to continuing to collaborate with you and work with you on this, and really accelerating our ability to meet affordable housing needs in the county.
Thank you very much, Evan. So there you have it. Those are the two major initiatives we want to kickstart here between housing and jobs. We are in our infancy at this point, so it's not like we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow that we want you to be at, but we just wanted you to have an advanced heads up of the work that's underway and know that you'll be invited to participate with us along the way. So we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions from council? Not seeing any. Great presentations. Thank you guys for the information. We look forward to hearing more about it as it moves along.
Okay. Thank you guys all very, very much. And nice seeing you again, Scott.
Thank you.
We'll catch up again.
Same here, Jody. Thanks for the presentation.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Bye now.
All right. Item number 7, items from the public, non-agenda items.
Thank you, Mayor. For any members of the public wishing to provide public comment at this time, you can do so by one of 3 ways. You can press the raised hand button under the participant tab. If you're calling in by phone, you can press *9 and that will get you in line for public comment. Or you can send the host a message in the chat channel and we will read your comment into the record. I'll go through the list and see if there's any members of the public, which I don't believe there are any. And there are no hands raised at this time here.
We'll move on to item number 8. Consent calendar. A, waive all readings of ordinance and resolution except by title. B, approval of all warrants. C, approval of minutes of the September 14th, 2021 meeting. And D, authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Sandtech Consulting Services Incorporated to update the City of Newman Water Master Plan for the amount not to exceed $39,646.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries 3 with 2 absent. Item number 9, public hearing. Okay, adopt resolution 2021, next in number, resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance 95-4.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Before you is the identified properties on the list at 1152 Q Street. Newman City Code 8.02.030 states that no responsible party shall commit nuisances of any kind on its property. 1152 Q Street qualifies as such. Photos of 1152 Q Street qualify the property. The property, as you can see, has rubbish in the front part of its property. Part of this rubbish has been removed since the pictures were taken. But we recommend the abatement to still continue with full efforts to clean the property, as this property in the past has been one of our continuous properties that we have dealt with. In the past, this year, we have already abated the property once. Appropriate notices have been sent to the property owners, renters notifying them of tonight's meeting. The abatement of said nuisance enhances livability and community appearance of Newman. Therefore, staff recommends that we conduct the city council hearing and adopt the resolution 2021 next number. If you have any questions, I can answer them for you guys.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I reviewed the materials and I move to adopt,
Oh, we gotta open
Resolution.
up we gotta open up to the public real quick.
apologies.
So at this time, I'll open up to the public for any public comment.
Any members of the public wishing to provide public comment on this item can do so at this time. You can press the raised hand button, *9 on your phone, or you can send the host a message in the chat channel. I do not see any hands raised at this time, Mayor.
I'll bring you back to the council.
Okay, I move to adopt resolution 2021, resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
You got a first, a second?
I got second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3 with 2 absent. Item number 10, regular business. A, adopt resolution 2021, next number. A resolution approving a cooperative agreement between Stanislaus Regional 911 and the city of Newman for the Newman Police Communications Site.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Okay. Back in 2019, we switched to do series for dispatch services on the police department side. During that transition, a technician from that worked with the Sirius Police Department set up our radio side of it out here in Newman. That technician currently works for SR 911, and Sirius had an agreement with him to do the work. Now, we came upon an issue out here a couple months past, and we did not have a technician, so we reached out to SR 911 to use the same person as a technician for our radio equipment. Before you, item B, you have the proposal by SR 911 to provide 24/7 service out here to the backbone radio equipment of ours. Also, with this agreement will be beneficial to the city of Newman for police and fire, is SR 911 will be building out their footprint at our facility to take on 800 megahertz radio, which both fire department and the police department are capable of. So we'll have a tower site right here to bounce off of and communicate throughout the county. This project does cost about $4,260 a year, about $355 a month. I do not see a need at this point to make a mid-year budget adjustment. I believe we can cover it with our current scheduled budget. And I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Chief? No. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions. I'll bring it back to council for action.
I move to adopt resolution number 2021, a resolution approving and cooperative agreement between Stanislaus Regional 911 and the city of Newman for the Newman Police Department communication site.
Second.
We have a first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries with 3 with 2 absent. Item 10B, appointment of subcommittee pool members.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go ahead and take this one. So at our September 14th 2+2 meeting that we did with the school district, the main topic of discussion was the actual pool that the school district was going to build. Under the previous administration, there was very little contact between the district and the city with respect to their pool and our pool as well. And I think some of that relates to them, putting a competing measure against ours. And so, but I think they believe that they were going to have the city do some operational stuff, and some of my conversations that I've had now, but they never contacted us. So in our 2+2, we thought it might be a way to kind of, I don't know, mend fences is the correct way to put it, but show the community that the district and the city can work together to develop a project for all parties involved. I mean, we are serving the same constituents. And so I know that the new superintendent, Posey, is real keen on, understanding that we serve the same constituents. So we thought it might be wise if we had a 2+2 subcommittee just to talk really just pool issues and see how we can work together to, develop and provide programs to all members of our community, whether that be water aerobics, lap swimming, swimming lessons, free swim, and all the like. I think it's important for two members of the council to be involved with that conversation because there's some big budgetary items that come along with that. So to understand, or to have two council members on there that are understanding, okay, there's some budgetary issues that go along with accepting some of these responsibilities is important. And then ultimately, anything that we would do would then come back to the full council for approval. So at this time, we're asking that two members of the city council be appointed to a subcommittee and to work with the district on some pool operations and maintenance issues moving forward.
Would I know McDonald's not here and neither is Candia. Would whoever's on the current 2+2 want to continue that with, since they already have a working relationship with them? Do you know if McDonald's interested?
I would be, I'd be fine with that.
Do we know if McDonald would want to be interested?
I'm sure he would.
I think he would. He's really, he's on that pool thing pretty big.
Yeah, and so Scott, you said you'd want to be on it?
Yeah, I'd be willing. Yeah, no problem.
You want to reach out to McDonald and I can be an alternate?
Sure.
And that's John, are you interested?
No, but I'll be an alternate too if someone needs me to take over when they can't make it.
So Scott,
I can reach out to Councilmember McDonald, confirm his, I'm in agreement with you, Mayor. I really believe, this has been a project that's near and dear to Councilmember McDonald's heart. So I think he'd be happy to sit on that committee.
and if he's not interested, I'll take the spot.
Fair enough.
I'm happy, but since he's already on the 2+2, that would have a working relationship. So
Makes sense. Okay. Well, we wanted to open it up to everybody, so I appreciate that, and all that Superintendent Posey know, but I'll contact Councilmember McDonald beforehand.
okay. Sounds good. All right, I don't see county supervisor on today, unless I'm missing him. Anybody else see him on there?
No.
Okay. So item 11, he's not here today, so we'll move to item 12, item from the city manager and staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real briefly, you've probably seen some activity starting to occur at Kern and Highway 33. So there is a demolition permit that has been issued to a general contractor for the ARCO site. So we're going to start seeing some activity going on there. I know they're real interested in moving forward with that project. So, we're at a very critical stage. So there's going to be some, obviously some traffic issues that go along with that. But I think in the long run, I think we're going to finally get away from the pigeon's nest and move forward with, a good project and redeveloping that site. I want to thank the council. We have been working with Opportunity Stanislaus with respect to the Volt Institute. Last that I had heard, we had one applicant that we had a lot of inquiries, right? But we had one applicant that had completed all the paperwork. So I know they were doing the background on him. And so I'll get an update from Tyler probably in the next day or two, and I'll share that out with you via email about where we're at with that. And we have a total of 4 scholarship applications, but they don't all have to be used this semester. They can carry forward. We have a couple of years to use all that money. So we'll continue to I think we advertise all through the month of September. So we'll see where we're at with that. And then just lastly, just continuing to, with Catherine's work, the Wetlands project, we're nearing 90%. Maybe she can update you on her time, but that project is going to come fast and quick. So with that, I can answer any questions the council may have.
Any questions? No. Thank you, Michael. Allie?
There you go. I couldn't see myself for a quick minute. Mayor, council members, just checking in with you guys. We are on our last 3 weeks of soccer. Soccer has been going out pretty good. We've been out on Sherman Park. That's been quite successful. We've also had our our fall harvest market here in our downtown Newman Plaza. The last day of that market will be October 22nd. Now it's Newman Eats and the Harvest Market. So far, so good. Everything's been panning out well at that market. Attendance has been a little bit different this year with football games up and going on Friday nights. So we'll be looking forward for our last 3 weeks here. And then we're turning around and getting ready for basketball season coming up here in the near future. Apart from that, I can answer any questions y'all may have.
I have a question. Is there going to be a trunk or treat this year in downtown Newman?
So the partnership is the one who takes over the trunk or treat, the Newman partnership team. As of this year, they will not be having a trunk or treat, but they've allowed Gustine to take over the trunk or treat for this 2021 year.
Okay.
Thank you, Alan.
You're welcome.
Chief Richardson?
Evening again, Mayor. Just a couple things. We're getting close to that shopping season, and especially the online shopping season. If you watch any type of the news, they're telling you to order your Christmas items early because they might not come. So we anticipate lots of packages being left on front porches, and just trying to remind the public to take your items in, see if you can meet your neighbors and have them take your packages off the porch so they're not advertised to everybody. Don't leave things inside your car without locking it up. Try not to leave valuables in your car because windows are easily broken. Just the common things that the holiday seasons will bring. Holiday seasons also bring a lot of theft, so just try to make everybody aware. And for my last thing, I would like to just recognize Jasmine Hernandez, who was our animal control CSO. She left our department after about 6 years of service with us. She was great with the animal side of getting dogs adopted, and had to put together a pretty good volunteer team. So we'll miss Jasmine, but I'd like to wish her well on her next adventure. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? No? Thank you, Chief. Lou?
Evening, Mayor and council members. Our auditors are still continuing with the audit. They're actually going to be on site tomorrow to review our documents and verify even more detail the accuracy of our records. We're still planning on presenting the financial report at the first meeting in December. Also, the auditors are at a point where they've are comfortable enough to allow us to resume with the treasurer's reports. So I produced the first 3 June through August, and our treasurer will be out on Friday to sign off on those. And so before the next meeting, you'll have those reports. Other than that, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Seeing none. Thank you, Lou. Catherine, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Hello, everyone. I would just like to remind everyone that we are in a drought. It's evident that it's going to get worse probably before it gets better. And so I would just, ask everyone to try to conserve water as much as possible. The city will be doing the same thing, cutting back water on parks. So please have patience if they don't look lush and green. And just try to conserve as much water as you can. Like a 4th grader told me, when you're brushing your teeth, turn the water off and then turn it back on to rinse. And so there's a lot of little things you can do that'll save water in the long run. So please adjust your timers as the cool weather comes in and you don't have to water as much. It's not mandated yet, and we're just being voluntarily asked to voluntarily conserve at least 15%. And so let's all try to do our part. So we don't have a mandate where we have to turn off all irrigation to outdoor landscaping. Secondly, I'll give you an update. We are very close for the Newman Conservation Area projects. As you know, there's 2 that are currently funded. The one project, the news, is almost at 90%. I expect to have 90% plans in about 2 weeks. We expect to sign the grant agreement in November, and we've already been given authorization to spend some of that money that will be reimbursable as we sign the agreement as of October 1st. And so as soon as we get the 90% done, the engineers will go right into finishing out the design, and then we'll start the pre-bid process and then go out to bid and get that project started under construction. You'll be seeing a few items come through because we will be entering into agreements with different consultants to perform some of the activities that are required for that grant. So you keep an eye out for those. They'll be coming soon. The restored wetland project, that one is coming along as well. It's a little bit behind. It's at about 65%, but we're on track. We're submitting permits because there is a US waterway adjacent to the property, which is the Miller Ditch. And so it requires several permits. And so we are in the process of submitting those permits to the Army Corps of Engineers, the State Water Resources Control Board, with some input from the Wildlife, Fish and Game Department. And so I will keep you updated as we get more and more done on those projects. And hopefully we'll have equipment out there moving dirt and building stuff soon. I'll take any questions if you guys have any, and hope you have a good evening.
Questions?
Go Giants.
Thank you, Catherine.
Good news. Good
Well-
news on those projects. Thank you. Chief Bowen?
Well,
Good evening, Mayor, Council. A few things. We did have a structure fire about a week and a half ago off of Jensen Road. I think that'll be in the paper this week, but if you have any questions, just reach out to me. I was on vacation when it happened, but it sounded like everything went pretty well. Lost an accessory building on the back part of the lot there. Also, you might be seeing some advertisement about PS events. They are listed in Stanislaus County, but these are going to be the north of us. It's going to be in the Wesley area and some areas back towards the east side of the county. So city should be safe. We shouldn't have any power outages due to PS events. The weather alone may create some power outages. Obviously, the wind event, we had a tree into a structure, no injuries, no significant damage. I just want to remind people to watch out for trees, especially in a drought situation. They are weak and brittle. Also had a couple structure fires, power lines that created vegetation fires that created a vegetation fire on Stir, which burned through a couple power poles and laid them across the road there. So it closed the roadway for a few hours while we were dealing with that and getting PG&E to help. Other than that, just day-to-day as usual, and I can answer any questions you guys might have.
Not seeing any. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Scott?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
I would like to thank Michael Holland for putting that thing in the paper for city council. I was hoping we had people that might fire up, watch it or listen to it, but no takers yet. And get your flu shots.
All right.
That's it.
Well, I have nothing tonight. Thank you guys for all your hard work in the city. And with that, I'll ask for adjournment.
Turn. Move to approve.
First, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Have a good night. Thank you. Guys.
Game's on.